Hello again. This video is one of the most important videos that you will watch inside this blog about React, because here we're going to explain the two difference of React components. In this component, the default one, the app.js one, as you see, we have here function called app that return a div. And then we also created two components, one for button, we have function called button, and the list is a function called list. So the first type, as you see, is a function component, where you have the component as a function. But I will not use a function component, I will use something else. I will use a class component. So we have either a function component or we have a class component. Function component, as you see inside button.js, for example, you have function button that returns something, or inside the list, function list that return also div, ul, etc. A class component is basically, instead of writing React function component, you will write React class component. And instead of giving you a function, it will give you a class and everything will stay almost the same. Now, let me show you the difference. I will show you both syntax. Here is here and this is this. So import React from React, here import React and components from React. Here you have a function called app. Here you have class called app. Here you have return. Here you should render and then return. Export default app. Here export default app. So the difference is either you use the component as function or you use the component as a class. Now, what is the difference between function and the class? The function, it's a less or stateless component, but the class is basically a stateful component. So one is a stateless, one is a stateful, which means one, we can't use the state, but the other one, we can use the state. So the function component is it's a function. There's a stateless. We cannot use the state. Class, it's a stateful, and then we can use the state. Now, more than the question in this case will be, what is the state? So what's the state? Why we need to use it and why not? Now, state is basically a component database. It's a component storage. So the state is basically a place where you can use it as a database or as a storage for this specific component. Now let me give you an example. Here inside app component, I will create the first state. And since it's a class, so you should deal with it as a class. We do a constructor. And then inside the constructor, if we have any props here, we need to use the super. And the super, guys, we talk about it inside a block OOP, object-oriented programming. We talk about that inside object-oriented programming. And then we have this dot state equal to object. This is how we do this part. So if you don't remember what is constructor and what is super, you should watch the OOP block again when we talk about classes and how to inherit class in another one. All right, this is the place where you can check the constructor and the props. Now we write this dot state, and here I will have username is equal to, let's say, Sam, and we have an email, which is, let's say, sam@gmail.com. All right, now I have here a username, I have email, they are both information inside our state. I want to print them inside this app. I will write here inside the div, I have an H1, I will do hello, and then look, JavaScript code is with curly braces, and I want to get from this class, I will touch the state, and from the state, I will touch the username. So it will be like, hello, Wissam, and here in H3, email is again from this class. I will touch the state, and inside the state I will print the email. So you can see now we have this as a template, hello and email. It doesn't matter what's this data here. We have the information here, and now we can see hello Sam, your email is sam@gmail.com. Every time I change this one to just username example blah 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 blah, we see here this will change to the same ID. So let's recap again what we did. Class component is a place where you can build a constructor, you can have a super, you can have a state. This state can be any information you want, and then you render, return a div. This div has blah blah blah. Let's say here I have five colors. Okay, my favorite colors. It's an array. The first one is a green, the second one is black, and let's say I love red and blue and white. Okay, so these are the important informations that, oh, sorry, these are my favorite colors. I need to loop through these items. So I will write here a JavaScript, and I will write path colors dot map, and for each color, I need to always render, sorry, I need to return always one thing. I will return just a div, and inside the div, I will return an edge for what is the color. So it's basically map is exactly like for each or variable, for each for loop. Uh, map is a function to loop through all the items inside an array. Here is the color variable, so we should use it here as a variable. We do this and then we do that. Now let me check. We have path color is not defined because path color is inside the state. So here we should write from this class, I will touch the state, and then from the state, I will touch path color dot map, loop through each color, and for each color, return the color inside H4. And now if we check, you can see here we have green, black, red, blue, white. Now what I will do, guys, look at this. I have here list. This list has UL, LI, 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 etc. Okay, now I will send, or let me make this in a different video. Let me make this in a different video. So here we have username, email, favorite color. We know how we print this information from the state, this dot state dot username dot email dot color dot map color, etc. Now what I will do, instead of having the list here, I will find a way that I can use the list component that I created. And to do this, I need to send the list, which is the fifth icon. I need to send it to the list component, and inside the list component, we're gonna loop through these informations. For example, how we do that? I will take this out from here, if you don't mind, and I will call the list component. So I will import list from component list. Okay, now what I will do, I will call this list up. As you see, it will show me the normal list that we created before with our buttons, but we don't want that. I want to send data, and this data is basically this class dot our state dot the fifth icon array. So I sent the array to the list component as I send it as data variable. So in the list component, I will receive it as a data, for example, and also you can always console log what is the data app, and you can check in the console the data is array. Inside the array, we have these colors. So we can also use console log here. Now, I have a UL, and the UL, inside the UL, I will have, if you have data, okay, if you have data, so please loop through this data. I know I have color, or let's say I have values, and for each value, please return li, and this li is based on what is the value. Now, let me see what we did wrong here. Unexpected token. Yes, because return should not be a curly braces, but it should be a normal function. So we have here the data and data.map. Basically, if you have information, if you have any data, loop through this data, you will have some values, and for each value, return the values. Data.map is not a function. Okay, because this should be maybe, I think, if we change this one to props and we console log what is props, you will see the props is based on a list that has a data inside. So it was either leave this data and here it should be data.data, or just make it a props. And here, right, if you have a props.data, then props.data.map. Now, if we refresh, you can see here now we have these colors, green, black, red, blue, white. And now what is the funny part is any any array you have, let's say numbers, is all about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Now I will just create the same list again. I will send data, and this data is this dot state dot numbers. Now what you will see, you will see exactly the same thing repeated, but with different values. Yes, because list here should be capital L. You see exactly repeated with the same value. So now I can create any array I want, and this array, it can be sent, for example, to this component, and this component, it can repeat the stuff we did multiple times as we want because of the props. Props is basically we are sending the data that we want to a different component. We write it here as an attribute, but we receive it here as a props. This is about the class component and about the state. Uh, for function component like this, we cannot use the state, but for sure we can use the props. So you write here props, and here you receive what is props.title, props.title, which basically props.title. Now, which basically now we can call this component to render a button with a specific title. We decide what is the title for the button. For example, here I want to have a button from the button component, and the title for this button is click for example. And we should see here we have a button click for example. Let me change, let me create the same button with this to, we should see the same button with, let me save, same button but with different title. Even inside this list, here after li, create a button, and this button should has a title from list component. And you can see here from list component, from list component. So you can also use the props inside a function component, but you cannot use the state. The props is basically it will send from a parent component to a child component, and from the child, you can use it, you can call it in that component. To the button component, I just send the title, and here I received as a props, and I print the title here. So whatever the title was, it will print here. And for the list, I send data. This data is an array. And here in the list, we are check if we have this data or not. And we are loop through its data and we print all the data information as you see here. So stateless, stateful, class component, and the function component, they are both different. The difference between them, function component, it doesn't have a state as we have here. So we cannot use it as a local storage or local database. Class component, we can have a state and we call it stateful. So stateless and stateful, class component and the function component, and also the props. In the next video, we will talk about something called life cycle. See you there.